All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to give you kind of a quick one-stop shop for everything you need to know about solving factoring for these three termers right here. I rewrote our nice terms or steps on the left side, so if you want to pause the video and write these steps down, this may be a little clearer than what we did in class yesterday, just kind of off the cuff. So we'll go through each. I'll try and color code according to the step I'm on, and this should be a pretty good example that'll get you through a lot of this. Okay, so in black at the top, number one, it says to find the GCF. Is there a GCF between 12, 11, and 5? No, these don't all have the same number, and we can't touch any variables because there isn't a variable in the last term with that -5. So no GCF, and most of the stuff you're going to see today won't have a GCF. But it's good to look for that first no matter what, because it can make our numbers easier if we can't get out a GCF. Okay. So then we're on to step two, and step two says to make that x. We want to make our x, okay? I put in green what we're going to do with it in a second, but essentially we're going to take the front times the back, okay? So this 12 times this -5, front times the back, and that goes on the top of our x. So 12 times -5 is -60, okay? And then we need to, in the step, it says the middle number goes on the bottom. So we're going to take this 11 and it goes down here. We're going to say 11. Oh, okay. All right, so we made our x. So that's all that step is. So we're going to then go to green. Green says to find the factors. So we're going to try and fill out these factors, find the two things that would multiply together to be that top number and add together to be that bottom number. Okay, I put that in our x near our steps on number 2. Right? We're going to need to multiply, in this case, to be -60, and add together to be a +11. Okay, well, what is that going to look like? We need to find factors of -60. We need to find things that multiply to -60. I like to just list a bunch of them out, and then hopefully we can find the ones that add together to be 11. Okay, deal. Don't forget things like 1 times 60. But remember, that's positive, right? So we need one of these two things to be a negative. You can either list all of them out, or you can kind of in your head remind yourself that you're going to kind of be subtracting. Okay? So remember, it could be -1 and 60, or it could be -60 and 1, both of which would multiply to be -60. Both of these would multiply to be -60. So we could do those, but if we added either of those, we'd have like -59 or +59, and that's not going to quite work. Okay, 2 times -30, -2 times 30, well, that's 28, not quite. -30 times 2, okay, that's -28, not quite. All right, keep going. Does 3 go into it? Yeah, 3 times what? 20, I think. 3 times 20. Okay, but that's not going to work. That's going to be like 17. -20 times 3. Well, that's -17. Still not that 11. Keep going. Once again, if you can find these before without writing every single one out, that's great. I'm just doing it because, hey, I don't know. I got to keep going. Use your calculator to figure this out if you need to. Can I divide this by 4? 4, let's say -4 and 15. And -15 and 4, both would work. Hey, wait a minute. That seems like we could get an 11 there, right? And which one do we want? Do we want -4 plus 15? -4 plus 15, or do we want -15 plus 4? Which one of these equals? Well, you got to be careful. Remember, your sign of the bigger number will always win. So this is a positive 15, right? And this is positive 11. And then -15 plus 4, that's a -11. So we don't really want this one. We want this top one. We want -4 and 15. Whenever I write those down there, this is just a graphic organizer. Remember, the X is just to help us think visually, right? And double check, is -15 times, or excuse me, is -4 times 15 -60? Yeah. Is -4 times, or plus 15, 11? Yes, these are the numbers, right? -4 times 15, -60. -4 plus 15 is 11. Okay, good. Done. Green step's done. We found the factors. What are we going to do with them? Well, in blue, it says we need to replace our middle terms with those factors. So we're going to replace this 11 with these two numbers here. We're going to take those two numbers and we're going to rewrite that middle term into two parts instead of those that one. Right? So we're going to break that 11 down. This is going to be minus 4c and plus 15. I didn't change my problem. -4 plus 15 is still going to be 11c. I just wrote it differently so we can then find some. I'm going to drop these down in black just so you know I didn't change any of these. This is 12c squared. This drops down and is -5. And now we just finish by factoring by grouping. This is what we did last week. You'll group these front two. You'll group these back two. And we need to figure out what we can take out of each of these two chunks. What can I divide? So if we're looking at the first chunk, what can I divide 12 and -4 by? Well, we can definitely divide them both by 4. And then can I take a variable out? Well, yeah, they each have a c, right? And this will always happen. We'll always be able to take a c out. Just one, or can I take out more? No, that second term, that -4c, just has one c to give. So we can only take out 4c. Cool. All right, what happens if I divide each of these by 4c? 12 divided by 4 is 3. And I had c squared. I stole one out front. I'm left with a c. Great. -4 divided by 4 is -1. I had a c, but I stole it out front. No more c. 3c minus 1. So we need to factor the second section. We need to say, what can I GCF out of that second section? And hopefully it's going to match that 3c minus 1. Well, what can I divide both 15 and -5 by? That's a positive 5. Remember, we always take the sign of this one here. We always take the sign of that 15, so of that third term. So we'll take out a positive 5. And then, can I take a variable out? No, you'll never be able to take a variable out in this second one because there will always be that last constant term there. Right? So if I divide each of these by 5, 15 divided by 5 is 3c, and -5 divided by 5 is -1. Look at that. My two parentheses match. That has to happen every single time. And if so, you can kind of write your final answer. We're done. We have 4c here plus 5. The front stuff comes together. And then if those middle terms match, it means we did it right. This matches this and comes in our final answer, 3c. Beautiful. Okay, so this is our final answer. If you foiled this back together, you would get our original answer up here, that 12c squared plus 11c minus 5. These are the same thing. Remember, we're just rewriting these so that if we want to use this factor form, we can later. All right. Cool. And for a last little piece, just kind of like a bonus thing here. So there's kind of three things that can happen with your signs, right? When we get to this x part. If we have a positive on the top and a positive on the bottom, if everything in the whole problem is positive, you're going to have two positive factors. We're going to have two positive factors here because the only way to multiply two things together to get a positive number and then add them together to also get a positive number is if everything is positive. Okay. So think like if this was 12 and let's say 7, right? What multiplies together to be 12, a positive 12, and adds together to be a positive 7? Well, positive 3 and positive. They'll both be positive in order for us to multiply to be positive and add together to be negative. Okay. But step 2, so that was 1. Number 2 here, what can happen is, well, we can get a positive on top and a negative on the bottom. Well, if we're multiplying two things together to be positive, they either both have to be positive or both negative. But then I want them to add together to be negative. The only way to make this happen is if they are both negative, right? Because in order to multiply to be a positive, they have to have the same sign. Cool. So For instance, if I had a positive 12 here, but a negative 7, well, I want like 3 and 4, but those would multiply or add, excuse me, to be a positive. So if I make negative 3 and negative 4, negative 3 times negative 4 is a positive again, 12, which is great. But then negative 3 plus negative 4 is negative 7. They still add together. We just keep that negative sign. Cool. And then what you just saw is number 3. Anytime you have a negative on the top, you're going to have one of each. Okay? You're going to have one of each. You're going to have positive and a negative. Okay? Every time, because the only way to multiply together to get a negative is to have one of each. Okay, so what will decide? Well, this kind of decides which one is which, right? So you'll need to do some math and say, hey, which number do I want to be positive and which do I want to be negative? For instance, up here, when I did it, I made sure, and I did that math, I made sure I wanted a negative 4 and a positive 15 so that when I added them together, I got that positive 11. Right? If that was a negative on the bottom, that negative 11, we would have had to switch those signs. Okay? So there's 3 different ways that things can happen. This number 3 is definitely the one that you're going to have to use a little bit more brain power to do. And say, hey, which sign goes where and what's going to happen there. Okay? But anytime you see these, this is kind of a little cheat sheet too if you want to pause this and take some notes here. Anytime they're both positive on the top and the bottom, everything's positive. Anytime the top is positive and the bottom is negative, you're going to have 2 negatives. And anytime there's a negative in the top, you're going to have to make some decisions about what goes where and what adds together correctly. Okay? All right. Hopefully this helps. Feel free to rewind and pause and go back and check any of these steps. But this should be a pretty good overview of what you will see for our factoring. Have a great day, everybody.